How's everybody doing? Pretty good. Feel like we got better over these last 3 days. A lot of work went into this, and I thought our scouting department, led by Goody, did a hell of a job, and we're just excited to get these guys in here.
Another really large draft class and a lot of versatility. When you look at the youth that you already have, bringing in another large class, how much competition are you looking forward to in the offseason once camp starts?
Well, that's always the goal, is to bring in as much talent as possible, and now it's our job to maximize the talent and try to push these guys to new limits. And but we certainly added, especially in some areas that we really needed it, added a lot of competition.
What's the biggest way in which you think your defense specifically has gotten better these last 3 years?
I just think in terms of, first of all, we always do a really good job of adding high character players into this organization, but just the way these guys, the physicality that these guys showed on tape, their ability to run and hit, that gives us, leaves us very optimistic.
And along those lines, I know the game has changed inside. Their off-ball linebackers are a little smaller than they were 20 years ago or whatever. But how do you stop the inside run with 230-pound linebackers?
Well, I don't think it necessarily matters. I mean, it does to some extent how big you are, but I think it's about playing sound football. And if you really want to stop the run, a lot of times you got to commit more people to that, and you play single safety. So you talk about 8-man boxes, and everybody's got to play their gaps, and we're going to have to do a great job. And it always, for me, it always starts up front. Getting off the ball, creating havoc, getting penetration, and everybody doing their responsibility.
With Jordan Morgan, you got a guy that can play anywhere. Brian said, get him to the coaching staff and see where his best place is. Do you start him at left tackle since that's premium, since he can play that position, and then kind of go from there? What's the plan for him?
Yeah, I think that's where you'd look. That's what he's played his whole career, and he's played a lot of football. So, but ultimately, and I know you guys love to hear me say all the time how we're going to get the best 5 out there, and I think there is some cross training that goes on along the way, but ultimately we just got to get the best 5 that give us a chance to move the football.
Matt, what excites you the most about Lloyd, the running back?
I think he's a piece that, first of all, he's big. He's 220 pounds. He's got really good speed, and I think he gives us an element out the backfield. He really showcased that the week of the Senior Bowls, especially in the one-on-one situations that he was in, and just gives us a little different flavor maybe.
What's your comfort level at corner right now? It seems like you're putting a lot of eggs into Eric Stokes and Carrington taking that year 2 jump.
Yeah, I think that just is, first of all, we got a lot of confidence in those guys anyways. Through 2 weeks of the offseason, the guys have been really getting after it. All those guys, Jair, we got Corey Ballantyne back, obviously CV, Stokes looks great. So we've got a lot of players that we're confident in terms of just being able to go out there and play at a high level.
Matt, it's like the whole safety position's been revamped here with all these new guys. What's this going to look like with how do you envision it?
I think it's going to be a very competitive situation, and it doesn't matter necessarily whether you're a second-round pick or you're a UDFA. I mean, our job is to find the best players to go out there and compete at a high level, and everybody's going to get an opportunity.
Matt, what did you learn about coaching young players last season that you can apply moving forward? You had some pretty veteran teams at first, and it looks like you guys are just going to keep loading up draft picks and getting young guys in here.
I think probably the number one takeaway from last season was when things weren't going great for us, the guys stayed resilient and they had something to prove. And I think a lot of times when you get a lot of youth into your organization, the circumstances don't necessarily matter. It's about proving yourself day in and day out. And the guys did a great job. And this is why the football character is so important, because they did a great job staying together, staying connected, believing in one another, and quite frankly, pushing one another to continue to try to get out of the muck, so to speak. So, I think that youthful energy can be good for us.
You think you'll be better? Like, I know there were some times where you talked about, I don't know how much to push these guys or how much to put on them scheme-wise. Do you think you have a better feel as coaches on how to deal with that youth too?
Yeah, I would say so. I think, more so probably from an offensive standpoint. Obviously you got a new defensive staff for the most part, so there's going to be some learning along the way.
Matt, you've mentioned football character a lot. I noticed 5 of these players were captains when they were in college. Was that a conscious choice, or did that just happen to be the best players available?
Yeah, I think that all of that is in effect in terms of when you're grading these players and when you're stacking your board, and it just kind of fell that way. But we're fortunate that it went that way.
With Pratt, what did y'all like and what you saw from Michael Pratt, the quarterback you took in the last round?
Yeah, I think he's a guy that he definitely is a tough, fearless thrower, and to me, that's a prerequisite for the position. You got to be able to stand in there and throw in muddy pockets, throw in the face of pressure, and I think he exhibited that. I think he's a winner. So we were excited. We were kind of shocked that he was still there in the 7th.
Matt, as a quarterbacks coach background yourself, how exciting is it just to have young guys come in at that position? You had Sean and Alex last year, and now Pratt. What is that like for you to be able to work with those guys at the very beginning?
Yeah, it's like they're a ball of clay, so you can kind of help try to get the most out of them. And we got a great room, obviously with Jordan and Sean in there, and then Tom Clements is as good as I've ever been around in terms of developing quarterbacks, and Connor Lewis, and now we added Sean Mannion to the room. So it's just a great room to be a part of.
You see any difference in Jordan Love at the start out with all the off-season work here?
Yeah, I think he's a guy that is coming in with a lot of confidence. I see him pushing himself each and every day in terms of just his ability to lead the guys, and I think he's done a great job.
You mentioned best 5 on the offensive line for years now, but when you have so much versatility, maybe the most versatility you've ever had, how do you conceptualize that? How do you go about and look at the cohesive whole instead of the individual parts?
Well, I think it's a process, and you got to give these guys opportunities at multiple spots. And I think Adam Stenovich, Luke Buckus, Eddie Gordon now, they've all done a great job in terms of giving guys ample opportunities to showcase what they can do, and then it's on us to try to find the most cohesive unit of our guys.
How important was it for you as a coaching staff, seeing how well Jordan operated with a clean pocket last year, to really be able to build that up as well as possible going into the second?
Sure, I think that's most quarterbacks. Most quarterbacks are going to be more effective when you have time to set your feet and you're not retreating from pressure, and you can step into throws. So that's what we expect out of what we get up front.
Hey, Matt. Brian, John Herrick, they both came down here and talked about how the game is changing and speed on defense is so vital. You guys obviously have added a lot. From a play caller standpoint, how does speed at all 3 levels of a defense challenge you?
Well, it just makes everything much more contested, especially when you have safeties that can run the alley and hit your runners at a couple yards down the field, and just be tighter in coverage. So it just is much more competitive.
Is Stokes, is he healthy, full to go?
Yeah, he's been full go. He looks great.
Matt, do you expect Xavier McKinney to sort of take a leadership role with the young guys that you brought in and the guys you already have? Is he that kind of personality?
Yeah, he already has. You can see it in the meeting rooms. You can see it out on the field. There's a reason he was voted a captain in New York. I've been really pleased with X, through 2 weeks.
Along with Pete's question, how does it seem to deal with Watson? How's he looking?
He looks great. He's had a really good start to the offseason, and we just got to keep it going that way.
I know it's April 27th, but do you feel like you've really got answers, or is that just you're going to have to get into real football stuff to maybe have 100% confidence say?
I think, yeah, once you get into more competitive environment, less controlled, I think you want to see how people respond. But I've been really happy with how these guys have been training in regards to the routines and just watching the effort that they've been putting on tape.
That was the amount of play action you run, with the amount of movement in your run game. Do you have to have guys like Jordan Morgan, the athleticism, and those type of linemen now? Is that sort of the standard for what you...
Well, I think you're always looking for athletic linemen, especially when you consider who they're going up against, every play. The athleticism on the defensive lines around the league is typically superior to that of the athleticism of the offensive line. So you want to have big guys that can anchor and move their feet and stay in front of people. And so I think he definitely has got that ability in his body.
Is there a height for an offensive lineman where you start to get concerned about leverage on run blocking?
I think I used to a little bit more, but the more that we've done this and the longer I've been in it, I think it's just every guy's a little bit different. I mean, there were some really tall guys this year that we thought were pretty good players, both in the run and the pass. So we'll just have to see how it all plays out.
How much did, coming out of last season, knowing that this was going to be another very young roster this year, affect your decisions of bringing in Jeff, a defensive coordinator, and dealing with a very young team?
I wouldn't say that had a whole lot of bearing. I think it was for us just trying to find who we felt was best suited to lead our defense. And, as an offensive guy, our offensive background, I think that you can kind of poke holes through every scheme. You can always find the warts in it. And for us, it's a style of play. The effort that we're going to play with, how physical we are, how we attack the football, whether it's, in the air or a ball carrier punching at the football, trying to get the ball out.
Brian was saying last night that for linebacker, he wanted interchangeable traits. He wanted length and speed, but really kind of making sure that he hit those instead of going Sam, Mike, Will. In terms of defensive philosophy, how different do you expect those positions on the second level to be? Are they going to be pretty standardized?
Yeah, you really would, in an ideal world, you'd like them to be interchangeable, at least in our scheme. There's a lot of crossover responsibilities, whether you're the Sam, the Mike, or the Will. And, the majority of football now, you're playing in nickel defense anyway, so you got two backers out there. And but there's a lot of responsibilities that overlap.
Matt, with the kid you drafted from Duke, Monk, he's started, I think, like 50-some-odd games at 3 different spots. How important was that, just given, the lack of depth there on the interior?
Yeah, I think that was huge. First of all, it gives you another guy that can play center. That's something that we're always trying to look for, is guys that have that ability, whether it's a guard or a tackle, to kick inside and snap the football. So we're always trying to cross-train somebody in that regard. And I think that just from everything we heard about the guy in terms of just kind of being the alpha in the room, we felt really good about him.
What sort of buy-in did you sense from Jair? Obviously, he wasn't here at this point last year. He did show up this year. Do you think, he's fully bought in?
Oh, I think Jair's been outstanding. He looks great. He looks like he's in great shape. He's really been busting his butt. He's been, been the leader we expect him to be. So it's been a great start to the offseason for him.
Hey, Matt, we haven't had a chance to talk to you since the Brazil game was announced, so
Yeah.
curious how your feelings
All right, here we go. Some real questions.
Yeah, and logistically, obviously that does some things for you guys timing-wise. Have you been able to work that? Is it gonna change when you can start camp because you gotta go down there earlier?
Yeah, there's a lot of things we're working through right now that we don't have all the answers to, unfortunately. So hopefully one of these days they'll get back to us and some of the logistical things that we got to jump through. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. It's an opportunity to go play in this league. We're playing. The advantage is we already know who we're playing. So do they. But it kind of helps you prepare for training camp and week 1, and hopefully it'll be a home crowd for the Green Bay Packers.
Can you fly out of Green Bay?
That's a heck of a question there, Pete, that I don't know the answer to yet.
I know it's a really long flight for week 1, but it's also a road game on a neutral site. Is there any benefit to
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Like when you go to Philly and play a road game, it's going to be a hostile environment. So hopefully being a neutral site game, that'll give us an advantage. There you go.
Matt, you didn't do the greatest job of hiding your feelings about going to London. Did you learn anything from that, and how you have to maybe embrace this? Because
Yeah, we will embrace this. Absolutely. I know it is a long flight, it is a long trip, but it's the same for both teams. So, and like I said, the advantage of playing a neutral site game, I think that there's a lot of advantages of that.
going back to competition, you've always believed in that, right? That's why you put the basketball hoop in the meeting room and all that stuff when you got here. It just feels like, though, that there is so much, that Goody talks about it constantly now. You talked about it. Did something happen, maybe watching the way the wide receiver room unfolded last year with all those young guys, where you guys maybe intensified even how important you think competition is? Did something change there, do you think?
I don't necessarily think something changed. I think it kind of, are you referring to just how we drafted 3 safeties and 2 linebackers? It kind of is just how it unfolded, quite frankly. And I'm a firm believer that you can never have enough competition. It's going to bring out the best in somebody in that room. And so I do think that when our guys are pushing one another, they're going to get better. And so that's what we're really excited about. I think we got a lot of competition, and it doesn't just pertain to the defensive backfield or the inside backers. I still think, I look at our wide receivers, our O-line, our running backs, tight ends. I mean, everybody's competing for snaps, for balls, and I just think that we're going to be in a better place because of that.
Is that especially true when it is such a young roster, when there's maybe lesser defined roles and there's so much room to growth, just having the competition breed that development?
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. I mean, when you're younger as a team, maybe there's less guys that are established, and you might not have a true number 1 receiver, whatever it may be. And so I think that, yeah, it can organically happen over time.
Matt, where is JJ in that rehab from the ACL from the Cowboys game? And do you think it's just a foregone conclusion he probably misses a chunk of this season?
No, I wouldn't rule that out. So he looks pretty good right now. He's still, fighting his way back, and it was never confirmed that it was an ACL. Like, he did not have surgery, so he's still rehabbing through it, and we're optimistic about it.
Matt, I know the draft just ended, but next year the draft will be here in Green Bay. How are you feeling about seeing the process in Detroit and having it come here to Titletown?
Well, I didn't really see the process in Detroit. It's whether it's in Detroit, New York, wherever it is, it's pretty much the same for us. I do think there's going to be some challenges that we're going to have to deal with next year. I'm just seeing the amount of people. What'd they say? Over 700,000 attended the draft. I can't imagine that many people in Green Bay, but it's going to be interesting. But it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be exciting for the community. Obviously, it's going to bring, I would think, a lot of money into the community, which a lot of these businesses will benefit from. And I think what better place than to have it than, in my eyes, this is the Mecca.
We're going to have to get an airlift to the stadium to get through the crush of people?
I don't know. That's something that I'll let Doug Collins and his people worry about how we get in.
Matt, where are you, or where I should say is Halfley in terms of formulating what you're going to look like when the season starts and when training camp, and does the draft impact that at all?
Well, we're 2 weeks into this process, so the vision is there. It's already laid out, mapped out, and now it's about the execution of that vision. So it's teaching our players, their assignments, what coverages, what fronts we're going to run, and then just trying to get everybody to play to a certain style, I would say. And you have to go through the whole process. So we just had phase 1. We finally get out on the grass with our players in phase 2 for the next 3 weeks, and then we're into OTAs and into practice. And I think you can't truly get the full benefit of it until you get into pads. I think that's when it will really come to fruition.
You knew what his vision was, and you hired him, right? So
Sure.
you had a pretty good idea, but when you start going through the process now, since he's been here, how much of what have you learned more about him or more about the philosophy? And I assume your excitement has only just ratcheted up as you've gotten deeper into it.
Yeah, I've been able to go around to different rooms and listen to all our coaches teach, and I'm really excited about it, to be honest. Just the energy, the attention to detail. I think all these guys are really good communicators. And I think our players can feel their energy and excitement for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Glad we're at the end of this puppy. First of all, just want to, again, I know I said this earlier in the process, just want to thank, all the personnel staff, the coaches, all our support staff, the PR staff, just everybody that puts time and effort into this weekend. It's a long process that starts, in the middle of the summer for our guys. And to get to the kind of the end of it and feel really good about helping your football team is a really good feeling. And so I'm very, very appreciative of everyone's efforts. And again, I think we had a really good opportunity in front of us as we started on Thursday. And sitting here right now, I feel like we did a lot of good things for our football team. So we're excited about that.
Matt, 4 out of 5. Sorry, Brian. It's late.
Yeah, I'm with you.
4 out of 5 years now, you've gone with 3 offensive linemen, which is kind of unique. Is that almost, did you need that much help? And I guess, in general, what do you think of that group that you're going to bring in?
Yeah, I would like to do that all the time. I think it's such an important part of what we do and protecting our quarterback. And I just think you got to win games in the trenches. So, but yeah, this group, it was a group that, started off obviously in the first round. And when we got into today, there was with Jacob Monk, I think it was a guy that I think we all really wanted to acquire, and so very excited about that, and then finishing up with Glover. I mean, he's a exceptionally talented kid that all his best football's in front of him. So again, versatile guys like we've talked about before, guys that can play inside and outside. I think Monk obviously is more center guard, inside, but I think these guys are not only fits athletically for what we want to do, but culture fits for our room as well.
What do you like about doubling and tripling up on positions? You've done that in the past too.
Mm-hmm. I think we try to follow the board, and I think I'd like to think that we're disciplined enough that even though we've picked a guy at that position, if the highest rated guy is at that position, we're not afraid to stay there. I think, you can make a mistake maybe because, hey, we just picked a guy at this position. Maybe we should, not take him because even though he might be the highest rated guy, but I think we do a pretty good job of staying disciplined to the process, trusting the board. It happened a couple of times this weekend. It's happened before where we've just kind of said, okay, hey, I know we took a guy here, but this is the best player that's on our board right now. Let's stay with it.
Brian, speaking of highest rated guys, you guys got you took the first inside linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
Theoretically, you got your first choice there. The running back thinks he's the best running back in the draft. How often do you think in a draft that you can get the best guys at positions or more than one?
Ooh, that's a tough. I mean, I don't think it happens very often where you're taking the top player on your board at that position a bunch of times in a draft. That's just hard unless you got a ridiculous amount of picks up top. But there are some positions that maybe traditionally aren't taken in the first round that I have a better chance to do that than others. But I don't know. To me, it's just about kind of following your board, and sometimes there's a bunch of guys at one position that, last year the tight end position was a great thing. There was a bunch of guys last year in that tight end class that would have been the number one tight end in a lot of years. So sometimes it just falls different every year. So again, I think for those of us that have done it for a long time, I think we can recognize that where there's a certain position that it's just really strong or really weak, and address that accordingly.
From the outside, it seems like you were able to target some needs on your roster. Was it a fortune of having value kind of fit those needs? Did you come to this draft really looking at, okay, these are positions that we've really got to focus on? How did that kind of work out?
Yeah, I think I've always thought that subconsciously sometimes when you build that board starting in February, that your needs are kind of baked into it. I think it's not something you set out and say, okay, we got to have this many guys at this. I just think it's you understand your football team, you understand where your needs are. So as you're going through that process, I think it's just when you scout for your team and not for the league in general, I think sometimes that subconsciously is just part of it. And certainly when you're within this weekend and you're picking players, if there's equal value and there's guys that need positions, that weighs in for sure.
What's the biggest way in which you think your defense has gotten better these last few days? Where's some big area in which you've strengthened?
Yeah, certainly we had a lot of guys on the inside of our back end that can really run and hit. You know, I mean, taking the linebackers and the safeties, and you know, particularly two of the safeties that we took that can go play nickel as well. So really just kind of fortifying the inside of our defense with guys who I think are going to help us right away, and then also some depth. So I think that's probably how we've gotten better.
I realize you only have so many early picks. You didn't take a corner till the 7th. You got a couple of guys over there who've had some injury issues the last few years. How do you think you're sitting there? How's your roster right now?
No, I feel pretty good about it right now because we're running around in shorts and everybody's healthy, you know. So, but no, I understand your question. I think certainly if it would have fallen right, we would have addressed that probably earlier. It just didn't. So, it was kind of one of those years with that position. But you know, right now, you know, I really like our group and I like the way they look. We got a long way to get to September with everybody healthy, but I like the way it looks right now.
Goody, speaking of corner, what do you like about King and you know, we're getting old now. So,
Right.
I mean, I don't know how many of these conference calls I've heard, 200 some or whatever, at Donnell Washington's dogs barking and stuff. But I don't know if I've ever heard anyone so emotional as King was about how disappointed he is that he went from being a potential first-round pick to being picked where he was. He's got to play, and he's got to do it, but having a guy that's motivated like that, what does that tell you too?
Yeah, I think, you know, I mean, I think our league is kind of, there's been a long history of guys that kind of felt they were overlooked and use that as motivation to drive themselves. So hopefully that'll be the case. I didn't hear that interview, so I know, you know, he's certainly was a guy that I think expected to go higher. And as we kind of went through it, you know, we felt very fortunate to be able to pick him where we did. He's got a really nice skill set. He played some high-level football at Penn State. You know, so, you know, I think he's got some versatility too to play outside, play nickel as well. So, and again, I think his best football is ahead of him as well. So I think, you know, he's a young player. He was a 3-year player coming out. So, you know, hopefully that does drive him. You know, I think we're going to have a very competitive secondary right now, and I feel really good about that. And it's going to be fun to watch those guys kind of excel.
So what happened there with him? I mean, he was an All-American last year, like 21 pass breakups, and this year he had 2. I mean, it wasn't like he wasn't throwing it; he was throwing it a fair amount. So what happened to us?
It's hard to say how, you know, why certain guys kind of fall in the process. It happens every year. Sometimes it's testing, sometimes it's medical, sometimes it's other things. So in his particular case, I can't really tell you other than the fact that, you know, we're glad that he did and glad we were able to select him where we did. And hopefully, yeah, history will prove that he should have been drafted a lot higher, but can't really pinpoint that one.
You used the word competitive, and it's not like in 2018 you didn't want to have a competitive camp, 2020 you wanted a competitive camp, but for what you've been able to set up in terms of the competition and how competitive with young players, versatility, is this about as competitive? Do you feel like this can be about as competitive a camp that you're entering into now?
I hope so. I mean, I think it's, you know, we're going to try to do that each and every year. I think moving forward, I think it's always kind of the goal. You never really know till you get in it and kind of how your health sits and how guys perform. And I do think, you know, we talked a little bit about it over the weekend in here about, I just think maybe learning a little bit through last year about, you know, giving guys opportunities and allow that competition to take place, how that can positively affect your football team, not only in training camp, but all the way through the season as well. So, you know, I'm excited for this group to join our veteran guys and just kind of see where they go. But I do think that, you know, for the most part, most of our rooms are going to be highly competitive, which is fun.
Is that competitive piece why you didn't mind having another big class? I mean, you've a few years now, you've had some high numbers in your draft classes. Is that part of that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, again, the more the better. I think if you're gonna try to build each and every room the best you can each and every year, you got to have enough picks to do that. You know, I mean, even with 11, we weren't able to address everything. You know, so it's just part of it. We, you know, again, our roster numbers were a little higher going into this draft, which is good and bad. But so I think, you know, right now with these 11 picks, that got us into the mid 80s, and we signed some undrafted free agents, and, you know, we're going through that process a little bit right now. So I feel really good about the competition across the board. That'll always be the goal. Some years are easier than others to do that.
Brian, can you clarify with JJ? He explicitly said the day after the season ended that he tore his ACL. Then Matt just said it was never confirmed. Maybe that's why you guys didn't draft an edge rusher. Did he ever tear his ACL, and where
Yeah, so JJ had an ACL injury. And certainly we feared for the worst when that went down. Pleasantly, I think we got some good news, and we think that we may have avoided, something as serious as a complete tear. So he's working through that right now. We're very hopeful that he'll be able to avoid surgery, but we'll see how that goes.
I asked John Eric this too, but do you want to be one of the 5 youngest teams most years, or is that just a way stop in roster building?
I don't think I don't think there's a goal to be one of the youngest 5 teams. I don't think we're looking at that. I think we want to be young, and we want to be growing, and we want to be getting better. We want to have young legs and be fast. And I think the age thing's just a number. It's more about our explosiveness, our speed, and the competition part of it. So we'll never shy away from being young. I don't think we will ever do that. But I do think we want to be green and growing. But this group that took the field last year for us, as they grow, I think it's going to be important that they continue to grow. Because we're going to always bring in competition, so they're going to have to keep getting better, if they want to accomplish the goals that they want to accomplish.
You told us in Indy that you would like to draft a quarterback, and you did. So what did you like about Pratt?
Yeah, obviously a winner. He really turned that program around, started a lot of games for him. I think he won 21 or more games over the past 2 years. He's a good athlete. He's got a pretty live arm, very accurate. Just kind of like the way he handled himself in the games that he played. Had some big wins. We were excited. I wanted to add a quarterback. A bunch of them went early, and so there wasn't a lot of guys available in the mid rounds. And as we got later and later, he was kind of the only one left that we really wanted to target, and we were able to get him, which was nice.
Hey, Brian, I'm not a doctor, you're not a doctor, but I swear that either Dr. McKenzie or someone said, like, a partial ACL tear is an ACL tear because it never heals itself. Is this something different, or?
Yeah, it's something different. I don't want to get into the details of it. And like I said, we're still working through it, and we're still hopeful that there will be no surgery. And he's looking good. He's working hard right now. Walking out of that locker room that night, that was a tough break. And I think over the course of time, we got some positive news. We were able to keep it quiet, which was good for at least a little while. It's obviously, that was a little bit of a blessing, but we're still working through it. We'll see where that goes.
Brian, we talked to Sam Seelan here earlier today. He was joking that he hasn't been at the podium for like 8 years.
That can't be right, can it? Yeah.
What has he just meant to the organization behind the scenes? Obviously, I guess finding Aaron to finding Jordan and a guy who's really done some good work here.
Yeah. The more you can do. Your work.
Never done.
I had to turn it off last night, so.
Where's Hallball?
That was a very good question, and I apologize for all that, but there we go. Sammy's been here longer than I have, which there's not many of those guys around, and he really embodies a lot about our personnel staff, and he's such a, he has so much experience and so much wisdom, and he's such a big part, not only the players that he's scouted, that he's that has helped bring to the Green Bay Packers, but just really the way, in his own way, how he mentors our staff, and me included, so he's a rock. He's someone that we all count on, and lean on and at times. He's the guy that has no problem telling you what he thinks, even though, you may not want to hear it. And that's refreshing, so, he lives in California, and he's gotten soft, but he's got a lot of Jersey in him when it comes to making decisions and player evaluation. So he's a friend for me. He's a great scout, and he's meant a lot to this organization over the years, and certainly been a big part of our success. So, he always tells me this is his last year for the last 8 years. So, but I think he'll scout forever. So, and he's one of the best. So.
Any particular guys you drafted in the last couple of days who are ideally suited to help you out in special teams?
Oh, well, actually a bunch. Obviously the linebackers and safeties, right? Big time fits. for Rich and what he wants to do. I do think even some of the guys, I think, Lloyd, the running back, I think he might have some ability to do some kick returning as well. And his speed, he may be able to use them in other spots as well. So, no, I think this group, their speed and their physicality is going to lead, to probably a lot of special team snaps over the course of the next couple of years.
I'm not sure how many of your guys went to the Senior Bowl this year, but it was the majority of them pretty clearly. Why is this such an important tool for you?
Yeah, not by design, but I will say that the Senior Bowl, Jim Nagy and his staff do such an amazing job of access and allowing us to scout those guys that go there. And it's such I think a really positive experience for the players. Not only the competition on the field, seeing really good players go against really good players in drills, but our ability to talk to them, interview them, be around them in that competitive environment is just, there's really not a much better evaluation phase for us. So it's very important for us. We put a lot of time into it. And like I said, their staff down there in Mobile, they do such a good job of getting us into spots where we can really evaluate these guys. So we're very appreciative of that. And but it's certainly not by design. But I know we've taken a lot of Senior Bowl guys over the years.
Brian, along those lines, is there something too at the Senior Bowl where you're seeing just kind of like the more raw abilities of the guys? Because it's not about game planning. It's not necessarily about matchups. They're lining up across from guys that maybe they've never seen before. Like, is there something to that from a scouting perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think the willingness to compete and put themselves in that environment. I mean, that's not an easy thing to walk out onto that Senior Bowl practice field and with all these NFL people, judging you. It's not an easy thing to sort of A, choose to do that, and then B, to compete at a high level when you're out there. That none of that's going to phase you. I think that says something to me. So I think that's important.
Brian, did Glover make a jump up your board because of the Senior Bowl or some of the postseason stuff that he did, or did you always have him kind of in that 6th round range? Or?
No, I think it definitely helped him. I think it helps anybody, whether you come from a Power 5 school or whether you come from a small school. But I do think sometimes when you come from a smaller school where you may have more questions about level of competition, and then you walk out into the Senior Bowl, going to go against those guys and prove yourself a little bit, that certainly can help you. And in his case, it did.
You told us you can't fall in love with guys, but I feel like early on in this, you said something about Monk, about there were a couple of guys in your room that really liked him and you really wanted to get him. What was it about him that you really were kind of smitten with?
Yeah, really. First of all, he's a really good player. He's very quick. He's very strong, powerful man. He can play guard. He can play center. So he's got the versatility that we like. He's a 2-time captain. I think he started 50-some games there with the kind of the NIL and the COVID rules. So he's shown to be exceptionally durable over a long time at a position that's hard to be. So just the more we got to know him as a person and all the things coming out of there, it was he really felt like, he was a fit for what we're trying to do, not only athletically and what he could do on the field, but just, kind of the grit and determination that you have to be a really good player in that room.
John Eric made a reference to kind of you guys digging into who guys are. And it's not like Ron and Ted didn't have you guys doing that too, but, you can't have all perfect human beings on your team. But it seems like you guys are really serious about that from the outside looking in. Is that, how do you go about that? I mean, guys could head fake you, right? And make you think they're great guys, but how have you gone about that? And is that something that you've really kind of gone all in on?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's always been important. I think we've probably continued to push that envelope a little bit. I think it's important for us. You can get fooled. Guys can change. That's very much part of it. But I do think, the boots on the ground, our area scouts that go into these schools multiple times, develop the relationships with the people. Since COVID and some of the new rules, the transfer rules, it's gotten harder because, a lot of these guys are transferring and moving schools. So the coaches that have been at these places haven't known them their whole time. They didn't recruit them in the home, and then they didn't have them for 3 or 4 years and watch them grow, right? So they may have had them for 6 months because they transferred in, and that's what they had them. And so our guys have really kind of had to get outside their comfort zone and their boundaries to find these things out, and they've done a wonderful job of it. And we've really pushed them to do so, and they've done an excellent job. But it is important. And again, you know, you're never going to be perfect with those things, but we do feel that the guys we're adding into that locker room, you know, who they are and what they're about is important. And that's you know, those things are going to lead us to have a really good cohesive team. And, you know, I commend our guys for doing a really good job on that stuff.
When it comes to versatility on the offensive line, a lot of times the conversation is whether a guy's a tackle or can play inside. But inside is obviously two different positions, guard and center. What are the defining characteristics you're looking for on whether a guy can play all three of those inside spots or whether he's just a center or a guard?
Yeah. I think, you know, like, obviously, you know, people talk a lot about the length on the outside that you have to have, which I think you do, but at the same time, if you're a good enough athlete and can move your feet, you can overcome some of that. When you move inside, I think things happen a little bit faster and a little bit more powerful guys in there. So your ability to set your anchor and stay low and play quickly, a lot of the twists and stunts are coming in there, so you have to have really good eyes and anticipation. So there's some different subtlety skill sets that you have to have. Again, we'd love to have, you know, our entire group be able to play all 5 spots, and I think we've done a good job of getting close to that. But you know, we've had some guys. I mean, look at Zach Tom. He's not your prototypical tackle, but you know, he has such good athletic traits and awareness and instincts that he can do it. So, but yeah, there's some subtleties between outside and inside.
Brian, can I clarify, you were talking about a 4-2-5, but I still need some more linebackers, not only for defense, but special teams. How do you feel about heading into this now when you're bringing in the undrafted guys and free agents?
Yeah, no, I feel like we did a really good job of kind of, you know, adding to that room where I feel much more comfortable now maybe than I did, you know. We were bringing back some players that have played here and played very well for us, but I think we needed to add some youth to it as well and some numbers. And, you know, sitting here today, right now, I feel pretty good about that.
At corner, do you feel like you're rolling the dice a little bit that Eric's going to get back to what he was in 2021, or Valentine can make a big jump just because you didn't add a lot of significant capital here this year?
No, I mean, obviously Valentine played exceptionally well last year for us. Eric looks very good right now. You know, we brought back Corey Ballantyne, who played some really good football for us. So I like our depth there. You know, so I feel pretty good about it. Again, like we wouldn't have shied away from adding if it would have felt that way. It just didn't. So, but at the same time, I didn't feel a overwhelming need to go be really aggressive towards that position because I like the guys in that room.
2 more, please.
Brian, I know the draft just ended, but obviously next year's draft will be here in Green Bay. Seeing the numbers in Detroit, how are you feeling about that coming to Titletown?
Yeah, we're all worried about getting in here, you know, and on time because of the traffic. No, I mean, you got to give Mark and his team a lot of credit for being able to accomplish that and bringing this event here. I mean, it's turned into something that I don't think I could have ever predicted when I first started in this, that there would be that many people and there would be that much excitement, you know, for the live part of that draft. But what it's going to do for this city, for this town, I mean, it's exceptional, and really excited just to see how it all transpires and how they handle it. And you know, this is the Ted in me, but you know, my first thought was, okay, do we got enough rooms for the scouts in the hotels? Do we got enough rooms for our players who are here? All the things, you know. So, but I think we got all that squared away. So no, but it's going to be good. It's going to be great. You know, hopefully that. You know, hopefully we won't trade all our picks by the time we get to there, and we can give them a little bit of a show. But it's I will say it was really fun in the room when some of the guys that came up to announce our picks in Detroit. That was fantastic. I got a lot of smiles in our draft room today. The way those guys, you know, went after the crowd a little bit. So that was good to see. I'm sure there'll be some of that, you know, next year here.
Brian, can you take us through the trade that started the day and why you felt you had to get up there to 111?
Yeah, I think, you know. So, you know, after kind of sitting there, we had, I think, 8 picks going into the day. After taking 5 guys, we were sitting at 13. And so I felt we had ammunition to kind of move around. The way our board was, we started to get thin for the 4th round, you know. So we were getting thin, and we had a couple players we really, really liked. And so we decided that, you know, okay, do we really feel like we're going to have an ability to select these guys? I didn't think the odds were great, so we decided to try to move up. It took us a while to get that done, but once we got it done, we were able to kind of pinpoint some guys we really wanted to go after and select, and so that was kind of why.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yep. Appreciate you guys sticking around.